Larry, regular viewers of Crowdsource the Truth and supporters of freedomwatchusa.org are surprised, confused, some are even a little bit pissed off about Judge Emmett Sullivan's ruling yesterday in the Michael Flynn case. You're not among them, though. This is what you expected, isn't it?
Well, I did expect it. I expected it, and actually I have a high regard generally for Judge Sullivan. He's a Democrat, but he's the best of the Democrats over there. Frankly, he's better than most of the Republicans over there. He's generally a man of integrity, but I think that Sidney Powell, who did a very good job, Michael Flynn's new lawyer, General Flynn, in uncovering withholding exculpatory evidence and other prosecutorial misconduct, made a huge mistake in going on Sean Hannity's show on Fox News and grandstanding what she found. Because for a Democrat-appointed judge to be on Hannity, he's not liked by the left, obviously. And although this judge is not far left, I think it was kind of like trying to paint him into a corner. And this particular judge, I know his personality, he likes to be very independent. He doesn't want to see the pressure as being exerted on him. So I think she made a mistake. And she'll be able to recover, hopefully. I think that what she should do at this point, Jason, is withdraw the plea for General Flynn and go to trial and, subpoena witnesses and such, including the prosecutors.
So it's not over, you're saying?
No, it's not over. But if they don't do anything right now, it's likely that General Flynn's going to be doing some time. He's going to be sentenced to time. And that's not something that you want. So they have to push back. They have to be willing to go to trial. They have subpoena power. They can bring people in and make it very uncomfortable for the government, and that's what they should do.
Right. And so, I mean, a lot of people were saying, Larry, there's been some conversation today that, even without that appearance on Sean Hannity, basically Flynn made a plea deal. He appeared before Emmett Sullivan in December of 2018. Judge Sullivan gave him the whole, do you know what you signed? Are you aware that you're waiving this right and that right? Wouldn't Emmett Sullivan have been sort of upending the entire plea bargaining process to have thrown away the plea deal after all this?
Well, he could have, and he may not allow Flynn to withdraw the plea. I mean, he did plea, and that's a potential problem here. He was very poorly served by his prior lawyer. Sidney Powell, I think, did a good job in uncovering what she's doing. She just made a tactical error. And she didn't go on Hannity once. She was on Hannity many, many times. Look, I've got the Golf Channel behind us. I can't stand watching Hannity either. I watch the Golf Channel because the guy is full of it. Okay, I mean, last night, again, they're predicting great justice here, with everything that's going on, that something's going to happen with the FISA court and Fusion GPS, and they had Maria Bartolomew, and this is how Fox boosts ratings. And conservatives are starting to catch on now, too, and turning the station off. It's become a total fraud on the left and on the right. So you really don't want to rely on that. And she had some very good evidence that she uncovered, and she should use that and try to withdraw the plea at this time. And she's got an ace in the hole. If she has to appeal it, she can use it on appeal. But, Sullivan, you were there in court with me once when I was with Judge Sullivan in the case. Mm-hmm. He has a very nice way about him. He's got a nice demeanor, but don't aggravate him, okay, because he'll push back. This is the judge during the Bush-Cheney years who ordered discovery of Dick Cheney over the Energy Task Force. And that was the right thing to do because they were hiding that. They were covering that up. This is the same judge that dismissed an indictment against Ted Stevens, the Alaska senator, where also exculpatory evidence was withheld. But if you keep throwing in front of him, what he did with Stevens and other things and, kind of rubbing his nose in it, that's not very smart. You should let him come to his own conclusions. You got to know what you're dealing with. I believe that he is a fair man. I won't say that about most judges, frankly, on the federal bench, but I believe that Judge Sullivan is a fair man.
And Green Noel is watching us on Periscope right now, Larry. She says Sullivan called Flynn a traitor. He's biased. What do you think about that?
Well, again, he was provoked at that hearing. And, they were talking about trying to have their cake and eat it too. And his prior lawyer, Joseph Kellner, who was with Covington and Burling, still is, the firm of Lanny Brewer, Obama's head of the criminal division, of Eric Holder, the attorney general, This guy's a Federal Election Commission lawyer. He hired the wrong lawyer, and apparently this guy Kellner basically, raped and pillaged General Flynn with legal fees and such. I mean, he just drove him into virtual bankruptcy and accomplished little to nothing. Yeah. So I give Sidney Powell credit, for rolling up her sleeves and getting into it. I think she just made the tactical error. Look, I'm not 100% certain that was the reason for this, but I thought at the time that was not smart to go on with Sean Hannity with a Democrat-appointed judge.
Right. So there's a sentencing hearing set for January 2020, and so what will happen there? Won't they just say, okay, you're going to jail, here it is, or there's still an opportunity for Sidney to appeal this and maybe...
Sidney Powell can attempt to withdraw the plea if that's what she decides to do and go to trial. The judge may not let her do that. I suspect that he will let her do that, though. And that would be the right thing to do under the circumstances. Since the general has new counsel, they came up with this information. Let's put it in front of a jury and see what a jury has to say about it.
Yeah, from a financial and logistical standpoint, the point is well taken about Covington and Burling and Robert Kellner. I have wondered from the beginning to what extent Covington and Burling was somehow foisted upon Flynn, because, why would you go to the law firm of Eric Holder when Obama doesn't like this guy? He fired him for saying that ISIS was a deliberate creation. How would that happen?
It's hard to understand, but in Washington, D.C., Kellner is in theory a Republican, but it's a Democrat firm. They're very partisan. I've dealt with them before. These big law firms, they charge you a lot of money. Frequently, you don't get, the attention that you should get. Look at, his bio there. He's a Federal Election Commission lawyer. You don't hire a Federal Election Commission lawyer in a serious criminal matter. Mm-hmm. So, in fact, I was trying to persuade through certain people that know the general to go ahead and hire somebody outside of Washington to defend him. You don't want somebody in the swamp. It's all part of this giant club. And it's a big, big mistake, and apparently they're going to pay the price potentially for that.
So basically, hiring an election lawyer when you're on criminal trial is basically like going to a podiatrist for a brain tumor, right?
Well, worse, maybe a proctologist. I think that's...
Depending on the patient, that might be the right choice, Larry.
There was an aspect of this that dealt potentially with a Federal Election Commission legal defense, and maybe the Foreign Agents Registration Act, and because he does have some expertise there. And it was a mistake by General Flynn to, sign a contract for a lot of money with the government of Turkey. That was not exactly a percentage move, but it doesn't make him a criminal. It's bad judgment, much like the president has exercised with the Ukraine, frankly. So it doesn't mean that the president should be impeached or that he's a criminal. It was bad judgment, and Giuliani got him into it. But I don't believe that the general did commit any crimes, and he's a good man. And I hope that he gets a good defense now and has the guts to go before a jury, and I think that he probably will.
Mm-hmm. And did you have an opportunity to read Judge Sullivan's ruling?
I read excerpts of it. I haven't read the whole thing, but I understand what Judge Sullivan was doing. And there is a tendency, more than a tendency with federal judges, to circle the wagons for the Justice Department. That's the way it is. I mean, even Judge Lambert, years ago, as critical as he was in my Chinagate case, where we uncovered all this bribery coming from China into the Clinton-Gore campaign, even he, with all the criticism of how the Justice Department had lied to him and everything else, never really sanctioned them in any major way. And when he finally sanctioned the Justice Department in a case involving the Indian Trust Fund, it wasn't a case that I was involved in, and held Gail Norton, who was then Secretary of the Interior, in criminal contempt. What happened? He was vilified by his fellow judges in the D.C. Circuit, who were also largely members of the Department of Justice Club. And of course, let's shift to another subject, Jason. Sure. Look at the Inspector General's report, okay? This is the Inspector General of the Department of Justice. Again, the Department of Justice circles the wagons. They can, write reports. They can say, well, maybe people did some things that were bad. Maybe they should even be referred for criminal prosecution. But in the end, they're never prosecuted. This Attorney General, who we've talked about many times, is no legal messiah. He's a politician, and he's a politician through and through. And he did not indict Comey, even after Horowitz recommended that on 2 occasions. What about Andrew McCabe, Deputy FBI Director, who was also recommended for criminal prosecution? No indictment, despite the fact that Judge Reggie Walton gave a deadline to the Justice Department to indict. Otherwise, he was going to turn over investigatory records in a FOIA case.
What happened with that?
Nothing. And McCabe is still not indicted. And this is what I take issue with Hannity and with Fox. You know, mostly Hannity. It's not as much Laura Ingraham, who's a lawyer. She knows, you know, the score. She doesn't make bold predictions. Not so much with Tucker Carlson. He's often on his weird whatever every night. But Hannity sells this bullshit to the American people, and that's how his ratings are increasing. That's how the advertising dollars are increasing. Hannity is not an honest person, because if he was honest, he would tell them the truth. He's been around long enough to know that there's no consequence to the higher-ups doing whatever they want and walking off scot-free. You know, I don't care how many times he says in his monologue that he repeats every night, ending with, and they're going to throw Granny over the cliff. You know, it just doesn't ring true anymore.
Yeah.
So I want the American people to know the truth. And that's why, you know, my radio show, Special Prosecutor with Larry Klayman, on your show, in what I write, I want them to know that, you know, we have to look for alternatives to bring about justice. Citizens' grand juries, you know, other avenues for the people legally and peacefully to rise up to wage a second American revolution. The Justice Department is not going to do it against its own, and it's not going to do it against the elite in Washington, D.C. Hillary Clinton's on the verge of redeclaring her run for president. Yeah. I mean, the woman's committed so many crimes that would make the head of the little kid in The Exorcist spin thousands of times.
No, I agree. She should be on The Sopranos.
Species. You know, she knows she's a protected species, you know, more than the desert tortoise in Nevada. And, you know, so this is, you know, this is what we're dealing with in today's world, and the American people are starting to see it. And it's a very dangerous situation when our system of justice has broken away from the people. It's what happened in the years, months and days leading up to 1776. That was the major reason why we declared independence, because the king had taken our legal system back to England. He had his yes-men hack judges making rulings that were harming the colonies, you know, with taxes and guns and everything else, methods of self-defense. So this is the serious situation we're in, you know, and I pay a price because I'm candid about these federal judges. I know they don't like me. I mean, a couple months ago, I was in court with Judge Lamberth on a case which, you know, where he bailed out too, you know, because he's political as well from time to time. He said to me as I walked in, he said, "Larry, I'm really happy to have you in my courtroom." Mr. Klayman, he said, "I'm not sure every judge in this courthouse, you know, agrees with me, because I am critical of them. Because if we're not critical of them, then this thing's going to continue. We need a constitutional convention to change the way we select judges, to get the politics out of these federal judges. They think they're God. They use dicta in a case called Bell Atlantic versus Twombly to decide whether a case is plausible. It's not for them to decide whether a case is plausible and allow it to proceed. It's for the jury to make that decision. That's the people's constitutional right. And only after discovery should the judge be able to dismiss a case, only if there's what you call uncontroverted evidence. That, you know, there's no doubt that that's what the evidence is. Can a judge step in? But if there's any doubt, if there's any contravention, if there's any difference of factual presentation, it should not be dismissed. So there's a big problem here. And, you know, the federal judges on this bench, they're very, very political. Now, I love Judge Lamberth. You know, I think he's a good man. But he made a mistake, and he bailed out, and I shoved the case back to him again. We'll see what he does. This was for Arpaio. It was a defamation case. Mm-hmm. But he's the best of what you've got on the bench, and even he is not immune from the politics.
Yeah, and this is what you originally formed Judicial Watch to do, to be a watchdog group specifically for federal judges. And I know a lot of people like the work that Judicial Watch is still doing, getting the FOIA documents, but you've raised the point many times that we really need an independent legal group like what you've created in Freedom Watch to give us sort of an oversight over the entire Department of Justice and to take up the battle for defendants like Dr. Corsi, like the Bundys. This is a much different approach, isn't it, Larry?
Yeah, Jason, look, FOIA cases, everybody wins a FOIA case. Your listeners can go out and file a FOIA request, and eventually they're going to get documents. So you don't lose a FOIA case. But yours truly takes risks. I file cases, and I'm trying to use the courts, hard-hitting cases, citizens' grand juries, to bring about justice as a private justice department. What good are documents that are showcased on Fox News by Tom Fitton and company if you don't use them to bring about justice? I mean, it's like getting, a catalog. What are you going to do with the documents? Okay, it's great. Like I said many times, hang them on your wall. But we have to bring about justice now. And Judicial Watch has $110 million in net assets. I challenge them to use that money, which they've collected from donors, to bring hard-hitting cases. Hire lawyers that know how to try cases. They really don't have anybody now to do that. Fitton's not a lawyer. But use that money. Join Freedom Watch to try to bring about justice. Documents are not enough. They'll get you on Fox News, but they're not going to do anything else. And then Fitton will go on and say, it's an outrage. The government doesn't do anything. Well, don't wait for the government to do it. Our founding fathers didn't wait for King George to do it. They did it for themselves, and that's what we have to do now.
Yeah. And it's interesting what you're saying, because the financing aspect of it is important. And I've taken a lot of people email me, Larry, and they're troubled by this conflict between you and your original group. So I've been trying to look at it in very sort of open-minded way, and there definitely is a connection between going on to Fox News and promoting these things and having it result in an influx of financial contributions. I've also noticed Devin Nunes is doing that, and there's something going on here that people aren't necessarily aware of. There's a lot of motivations.
There's nothing wrong in raising money, okay? But use the money for a purpose that may have some chance of success. Documents don't have a great chance of success. Judicial Watch brings some cases, in immigration areas and things like that. But with $110 million in the bank, you can be doing a lot more than just getting documents and going on Hannity, primarily. So I don't begrudge them that. But what I do begrudge, and people don't know the backstory between Fitton and me, if they ever want it, I'll tell them candidly what it is that the guy's tried to hurt me and my family now for 16 years. So, this is a fact. He was jealous. He's not a lawyer. And, he did everything ever since I left to try to, keep me down. So I'm sorry. I don't like the guy. And I fought back. But that's a reality.
And personal issues aside, I'm just talking about the financial aspect of it, where we see people going on to Fox and touting all this stuff, raising money, whether it's for a political campaign or for some sort of a legal watchdog group or whatever it is. I agree with you. People are giving money to these things, but in the case of Devin Nunes, certainly he's defending Bill Browder. People don't necessarily see the full picture of what's going on. And as you're saying, it would be nice if Judicial Watch was doing more with this money that people are getting. I get mail from them all the time. I wonder how much money is being spent on fundraising versus actually watching anything judicial.
Well, again, documents are good, but use the documents to accomplish a purpose, And that's why we're the mouse that roared. We're, very small. I don't have the time to go out and promote as much as Judicial Watch did. I left them with $20 million in assets when I left. And when you have money, you can make money.
Right.
But the fact is that for whatever we have, I don't ever want to do this if I'm not doing it to get a result, to change the system, to do more than just exposing what's there. That's important to expose the corruption, but it's not enough. And and that's why I take my hat off to Sidney Powell, at least. At least she uncovered this stuff and she tried to use it in court. But, she should have played a lower profile with this particular judge. He's the kind of judge that will react to that. And I wish her well, and if I could be of any help, I would be happy to be of help. I think she's a very good lawyer. And she should go to trial now with General Flynn. I think he probably would prevail.
Mm-hmm. So, but if there's a sentencing hearing scheduled, was there already a trial, or how does this all work? I understood that they've scheduled a sentencing hearing.
There was no trial because he pled out. He pled with an offer to cooperate, cooperation agreement. Yeah. So the judge doesn't have to let him out of that, but I believe he will. In the end, Sullivan is a fair man. He's not perfect. Uh, but you saw his demeanor in
Yeah.
court.
Yeah.
He's respectful. He listens, and like I said, these new Trump judges, they're afraid of their shadow. Sullivan's not, and if you give him a good reason, he'll be on your side.
Yeah, and it was interesting to watch the interaction between you and Judge Sullivan. I think people who haven't spent a lot of time, not that I've spent a lot of time, but even spending a little time in a courtroom, you start to get the feel for how complicated this is and how there's definitely a difference between knowing the rules of chess and knowing how to be a good player. I see really an analogy there. Just knowing the law is sort of step one. Having a good strategy, and like you're saying, certain little things. Judges are people. If you do something to upset them, it's going to have a negative outcome on your case.
Sometimes you have to upset them, but only as a last resort. I've always put my clients in front of myself. The nicest thing that anyone ever said about me was probably Joseph Farah of World Net Daily, who said, one thing about Larry, he doesn't do things necessarily that are in his own self-interest. 99.9% of all lawyers will put their own interests ahead of their clients' interests. I don't. Okay, so yes, I've clashed with judges over the years. I have some battle scars for that. I'm not in any way defensive about it because I believe in my clients, and if I have to, I'll throw myself in front of my client to protect him or her. That's what I'm in charge to do. And if it ever gets to the point that I can't do that, then I won't be a lawyer again. I'll go flip hamburgers at McDonald's. At least I'm doing something. Or I'll at the age of 68 become a professional golfer and not win one tournament. So.
Maybe you could flip burgers at In-N-Out Burger and find out if it's a CIA operation over there.
I never liked it. I don't know why people like In-N-Out Burger. This is the hype. Every time I've gone there, the burger is dry. It's
terrible. It's terrible. And you know what? I haven't spoken about this very much, Larry, but their legal counsel threatened me to sue me, even saying that there were possible criminal charges. I've been meaning to write a letter to the California Bar Association because it's my understanding that a lawyer cannot use the threat of criminal charges in furtherance of a civil matter.
That's correct. That's not ethical.
Yeah, it's not ethical. And I don't think In-N-Out Burger is ethical. I think they should have turned over their footage of Ghislaine Maxwell to the FBI. Speaking of the FBI, let's just turn for a minute.
It's a settlement. You can get lifetime supply of burgers, but I don't think you want to eat those burgers. That's how bad they are.
Definitely not. I want to talk a bit about the FBI. Did you get a chance to see James Comey being interviewed by Chris Wallace?
I didn't see it, but I read about it. And this is what I'm talking about. First of all, Wallace was just trying to push because his reputation has been so harmed with conservatives and libertarians that he had to do something to try to get some credibility because he's become so anti-Trump, frankly, so vile that, it's beyond the pale. He's personalized everything with Trump. But yeah, he held Comey accountable. We know Comey's a liar. This was Hannity's thing last night. He's a liar, or heads are going to roll. No, Comey's heads aren't going to roll. The Attorney General already had two chances to indict him and passed. Comey has more dirt on everybody in Washington, D.C. than anyone except Clapper and Brennan, former Director of National Intelligence and CIA. He can destroy any of them with what he knows at the FBI. In fact, there's been a report just this week that Giuliani was getting leaks from the FBI, allegedly illegal leaks. And that's what happens when you're a law enforcement official and you're with the FBI. When you leave, the agents that remain leak to you. It's like a professional courtesy. And this is what goes on. So all the dirt that was collected by the FBI against everyone, can start flying out of files as it has with regard to the president.
Mm-hmm. And, Rudy Giuliani was on Laura Ingraham talking about all this stuff having to do with Ukraine. Are we going to see Rudy Giuliani testifying in a Senate hearing with regard to this impeachment, or is Lindsey Graham going to dismiss the whole thing?
Well, Lindsey Graham's not going to be in charge of the impeachment, but the way it's going right now is that the Republicans don't want to call any witnesses, which is quite remarkable. They're going to maybe allow for playing videotapes of what Shifty Schiff did over in the House. But Schumer, shamelessly, wants to call witnesses. So, again, the Republicans playing defense and not offense. And as I said before, this whole thing could be ended now if the Republicans subpoenaed Joe Biden and his son to testify about their bribery schemes with the Ukraine. And they would run for the exits. But the reality is that the Republican establishment would like to see Trump gone. And that goes for McConnell, too. And if you don't think that's the case, watch what happens next.
Now, Larry, earlier today, Larry Nichols suggested that what Schumer was doing was outside the rules of normal impeachment, that the Senate is intended to essentially act like the jury, and what Schumer was calling for was tantamount to a jury foreman after a trial saying, you know, Your Honor, we saw all the evidence from the prosecution and the defense, but rather than rendering a verdict, we'd like to conduct our own investigation. Was that an accurate assessment?
Somewhat. The impeachment managers, for instance, in Clinton, you had impeachment managers from the House who were the prosecutors of Clinton in the Senate, people like Bob Barr and others. So it was somewhat out of line for Schumer himself, who's supposed to be a judge, to be suggesting what witnesses should be called. However, judges can themselves, as we say, sua sponte, on their own, you know, subpoena witnesses, ask questions, etc. So it wasn't totally out of line. What is out of line is the vile, hateful nature of Chuck Schumer, who's an embarrassment, frankly, to this country. He's a total embarrassment. He's a hack. He's dishonest. In my view, he's worse than Comey, for that matter. He's a complete, total political hack.
Yeah, so the dismissal is not something that's going to happen. I thought Lindsey Graham was proposing that.
No, there's no dismissal. That's not going to happen. And you know, what McConnell's planning to do is to give the Democrats an opportunity to trash the president. And he's not letting the president call any witnesses like Biden or Hunter Biden or Shifty Schiff or anything like that. Look, they're all buddies. I mean, look, there's an unwritten rule. It's the Senate, you know, collegial aspect of things, is that Biden was one of them. You know, 4 years from now, McConnell may be called to testify in some impeachment or other proceedings. So they're not going to push against, you know, their so-called opposition. But in fact, in Washington, there is no opposition. Like I've said many times, it's the National Football League with the American and National Conference. They all have one thing in common: the quest for power and stuffing money into their pockets. This guy McConnell took money from the communist Chinese during the Chinagate scandal. His wife, Elaine Chao, who served in government and is still serving in government under Trump. Her father has links to the Chinese Politburo. I'm not against the Chinese, not at all. But what I'm saying is, communist Chinese have bribed this guy to the hilt. You know, he's compromised. And that's just one aspect of him being compromised. He's the flip side of Schumer. They're the same type of a character.
I did not know that Mitch McConnell was married to a Chinese woman who looks younger and much too pretty to be married to him.
Well, he kind of looks like a turtle, but he, you know, he's done some good things, you know, in the last few years. But he's a political animal. He's a hack. He doesn't really like Trump, and none of them like Trump. The only reason they're trying to bail Trump out is so they can retain control of the White House and the executive branch. But if they had their druthers, they'd stab the president in the back, and they very well might do it.
Wow.
And that's the risk here.
Larry, I know you only have a limited amount of time today, and we're almost at the end of our time. Is there anything that you'd like to cover that we haven't discussed yet?
I mean, the moral to the story is that we, the American people, have to rise up and do it for ourselves. I keep saying that. And we cannot depend on the government to bring about justice, to protect our freedoms and liberties, no more than Benjamin Franklin, John Adams, and Thomas Jefferson did in the years leading up to the Revolution and thereafter. And we are in a situation today which is worse than in 1776. And the American people are less educated than they were in 1776. Those people are clueless as to what's going on. But there's a significant minority out there that understands what's going on. And it's a very dangerous situation when we have no federal judiciary that will protect us, no Congress that will protect us, and a deep state executive branch that's trying to stab their president in the back. And God forbid, but you know, when the Clinton impeachment was going on, Osama bin Laden was building up for 9/11. And I am fearful that the same thing's happening now, that we're going to have a disaster because our government
So
has,
distracted, yeah.
yeah, has taken its eye off the ball to the extent it ever has its eye on the ball. And this is a frightening situation where something's going to happen. Mark my words. Some major event, perhaps an accidental nuclear explosion somewhere, a dirty bomb or whatever, and our government has been doing other things, playing, tiddlywinks on Capitol Hill because they want to score political points.
Well, Larry, that's it for 30 minutes. I know you've got to go, so we'll have to reconvene later in the week or next week when some more information breaks. Want to remind people to visit freedomwatchusa.org. Larry's got a ton of really important cases happening right now. The Trayvon Martin family, obviously you're representing George Zimmerman. You're still representing Dr. Corsi, the Bundys, Judge Moore, Sheriff Arpaio. All that stuff.
Laura Loomer.
Laura Loomer, of course. What's happening with Laura?
We have real clients. That's important. You can't do anything without real clients. And these people are brave, and they're trying to preserve our freedoms and liberties, and we have to support them. So ClydeandBundyDefenseFund.org, CorsiLegalDefenseFund.com. People should support them because they're sticking their neck out for you.
And Larry, you're bringing up Laura Loomer. Am I speaking at a school to talk about this pro hoc vice situation in Minnesota?
Well, there's no pro hac vice situation in Minnesota. It's a question of whether we can get a local council up there with regard to Rashida Tlaib. Everybody's too scared to put their foot forward up there. So at the present time, she's proceeding pro se with my advice, but I cannot appear on her behalf at this time because no local council. If anybody's out there and knows somebody in Minnesota that is brave, that will come in and be my co-counsel, please contact me at leklayman@gmail.com.
That's what I was getting at. I wanted to put that message out there because I want to support Laura in any way that I can, and we hope that she's able to overcome this oppression from big tech. Larry, I want to thank you for everything that you're doing, and thank you for appearing on the show. I want to remind everybody that tonight at 8 o'clock, we're going to have the sponsor exclusive. Mike Moore of True Pundit will be with me for More Pain. He's got some explosive information that he's going to be breaking, so make your way over to patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth or subscribestar.com/crowdsourcethetruth, and we'll see you at 8. Larry, thanks for everything, and thanks to all the viewers.
You're great, Chase. Country owes you a great deal of gratitude, so thank you.
I appreciate you saying that, Larry, and thank you very much, and thanks everybody for watching. We'll see you later tonight.